You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, this is Jeff Belanger, author, researcher for Ghost Adventures, host of New England Legends, and of course, beer drinker. And you're listening to PSH Radio with Sam and Carl on the Parasearch Network. They're broadcasting to you from Old England. You can tell by the accents.
Good evening, guys. I am back. Carl's not here again because he just couldn't make it, so I'm obviously on my own. But yes. We obviously have the lovely Kerry who may step in if she needs to. We have another interesting guest this evening. His name is Greig Chandler. I had to say, obviously, good. I know I said that right because I asked him way before. Because I hate just getting names wrong. So, good evening, Greig.
Hello, Sam. Nice to be with you tonight. Almost, it was very French the way you said my last name, Chandler.
It just reminds me of like Chandler from Friends. So.
Most people say Chandler and then Bing at the end from Friends. Yeah, so I had that from school, so I'm used to that.
I think it's just one of them last names that roll off the tongue though as well, don't they?
Yeah, it's a nice last name to have. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. So obviously we'll just like literally. So what do you do?
So I'm part of Fright Night Surrey, and I've been with the Fright Nights family since last June. Fright Nights have been going since 1999, so they're the original kind of public ghost hunting company that set up 20 years ago, actually, which is hard to believe. And I went on a few of their events a few years ago and just liked the way they did things, with investigations, how it was set out and everything. And a lot of friends have pushed me to do this as more of a professional career rather than a hobby, because I've been doing it, as a hobby for almost 8 years, and people have said, no, you're really good, you know what you're doing, your stuff, and you should do it professionally. I was like, okay. So I had a little chat with the people who own Fright Nights head office, and about what it would entail, because it's different than doing it on your own. I guess it's part of a franchise. But it's good because they help you with all the marketing and getting set up with a website and Facebook pages was really good. I mean, I'm quite creative, but doing things like that, I'm not that technically savvy with a computer.
Yeah.
It kind of set up, and and I've been doing it almost a year in June. But it was kind of thrown in the deep end a bit, but I just kind of took what I knew as a hobby, but it's very different. Being on the host side than the guest side. Very, very different.
Always like I don't host any, so I know obviously the guest side, and obviously you probably know both, don't you? Because obviously I know you do just go on some events as a guest, don't you?
Yeah, I just I feel I need to go as a guest, because there's one thing as a host, you can't scream, you can't shout, you can't run away from anything. You have to put yourself right in there as doing lone vigils and things like that, and doing kind of recce's in the dark, and so being as a guest, I try and be as a guest a few times a year, just so I can relax and throw myself in there, and if I need to scream, I'm allowed to, because as a host, I'm not allowed to do that. I've got to be that professional face on. I can't let that I'm scared or a bit worried or concerned about anything. So it's nice to have kind of a nice balance. But I do like going on other companies' events just so I can just be myself and enjoy it 100%, without worrying where all the guests are and things.
Yeah. Laurie, the talk of the devil, Laurie. It's obviously said in the chat room. Obviously, why? Because you can't scream, Greg.
Yeah, because I can't scream. Yeah, I think Laurie's heard a few of my screams. I think someone said to me once that my scream sounded like a banshee. So I'm not sure whether when I scream I scare away the ghosts and spirits. But some of them like it, I guess. Some of them like to give us a bit of a spook, now and again.
I don't think I've ever screamed on a ghost, and I've just been like, oh my god, I'm yet to scream.
I think it's like almost like a chain reaction when someone reacts or jumps or kind of shouts out a little bit. It's almost like everybody else does, because nobody else knows what you're shouting or screaming at until when it's all died down, when you've kind of got your composure back. You can tell them what you screamed at. I mean, I've screamed at a spider before, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what got you interested in the paranormal?
So, yeah, when I was young, in my teens, kind of 12, 13, I lived in this turn of the century 1900s house. And I used to watch horror movies when I was younger, but I used to have nightmares about them, so I kind of stopped watching them. And there was a few things that started happening, like I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just feel I wasn't alone in my bedroom. And no, it wasn't my cats. And lights turning on and off occasionally. And then one time my brother had someone stay around in his room on like a mattress on the floor, and they woke up in the morning, all the pictures were off the wall and then laid around this mattress on the floor in a circle. So that was quite strange, and a few kind of knocks and bangs that I couldn't explain. And then it got quite bad because we went on holiday and we came back 2 weeks later, and our neighbour came screaming and running across the road saying, "You were away for the whole 2 weeks, weren't you?" And we were like, yeah. And they said, because we heard noises coming from your house, and we saw lights coming on, and also almost one of the neighbours said it almost sounded like the washing machine was on. So that was kind of weird. And then one night the washing machine did actually come right out, and it wasn't even on. And I back then there was no Google, so I couldn't really Google what was going on. I spoke to a few people, but they just thought I was a bit crazy, and that went on for about 2 years, and then just suddenly stopped. And I can't explain. I don't know what it was. I've read now about poltergeists and teenagers and things like that. Feeding off the emotional turmoil of going through teenage years and puberty and things like that. So I don't know what it was, whether it was that or something. And I really forgot about it then for many, many, many years. And then about 19 years ago, I had a bit of a near-death experience for various reasons. I was in hospital. I won't go into the gory details, but I was in hospital. And I just remember waking up and I was looking down at myself. So I was almost like on the ceiling looking down at myself. And I was looking around and there was loads of it was almost like, it sounds a bit weird, it's almost like loads of mini torchlights looking at me, kind of moving around. And I don't know how long I was up there for, really. It could have been a matter of seconds. And then I was kind of back conscious in the hospital bed. And ever since that moment, I've just felt that, I would never say I'm a psychic or medium, but I would just feel, ever since that moment, I felt that I am very aware and very sensitive to, I get this kind of electrical charge from my tip of my toes to my head. And it's this, that tells me, that there's a presence or a spirit around. I'm very good at judging whether it's good or not so good, whether it's a child or adult. And it's ever since that moment. So whether I touched the afterlife, or whatever's out there, for a minute or split seconds. But it's strange. Whatever happened that day kind of affected me a little bit. So I wanted to explore it more, when I grew up. And then one day I was kind of Googling. I really fancied kind of investigating, because all these shows started appearing on TV. And I just Googled, and I found a company that was doing an investigation in a place called Woodchester Mansion. I'm sure you know that place, do you?
Yeah, I've been there.
Oh, yeah. And I went there, and that was it. I mean, that was it. I was absolutely hooked. I mean, at that point, I thought that everything was a ghost and everything was paranormal. I mean, even though I think that place is very active at times. And that was nearly 9 years ago. And then I've been hooked ever since. So it was kind of a number of things that happened, throughout my life that kind of started my brain kind of, things rolling, and me getting more interested in the paranormal and supernatural and things like that. So
yeah. So do you find a reasonable explanation if anything happens before you say it's paranormal? Or
so before it was just everything was paranormal. Every sound, I think, it was just, I didn't know what to expect, and every sound and every movement, everything I was seeing was just, oh my God, that's a ghost, that's paranormal. I was just so nervous and excited at the same time. But, speaking to people and really learning about it, or lots of research, I'm now more rational than I've ever been. And I think every investigation I do, I'm just more looking for that natural cause, that rational explanation. Is it, is there a window open? Has the sun been on the building all day, and then it's cooling down, so the wood may be expanding and retracting, making noises and things like that. So I'm more rational in that way, because I think sometimes we're too quick to just say, oh, that's paranormal, without kind of really thinking about what we're hearing and what we're seeing first. Because a lot of the times it's not. It is natural sounds, and it is the corner of the eye phenomenon. It's just it's not a spirit you're seeing. It's just the corner of the eye, and when you're in the dark, your eyes and your mind plays tricks. So I'm learning more and more to kind of just stand back and look at what I've caught or seen, or think about what I've heard, and is it a voice, or is it just something else? So I'm definitely more rational now. Because there is that small percentage that we can't explain, that we can, I think, definitely put down to something that's not normal, that is, paranormal, really.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, go on then.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in at this point.
It's all right.
Because you know more now, and because you're more rational about things, do you feel that that's ruined some of the experience of ghost hunting for you?
Yeah, I think the more investigations I've done, and I also working with other people and seeing what they do and how they investigate is made me a better investigator, if you know what I mean? Because I've just kind of taken other people's experience and learning skills from other people, and them sharing their experience and knowledge about it, and also using the different means. Before it was just, we're just waiting for a sound to happen or calling out. But obviously now there's so many different things you can do now to try and get a reaction. So I'm all about going in there and trying every single thing, from doing a seance to just sitting and waiting, to using equipment, because you never know, if there are spirits in a particular location. You don't know, they might want to communicate by just tapping, or they might want to communicate using equipment because they find the flashing lights funny and things like that. So as the years have gone by, I'm just learning more and more how to be, a better investigator, really.
It is good to draw on other people's experiences and stuff like that, isn't it? And how they work in the field. and cover all bases, like from the spiritual and from the technical side.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is really good to do that because, like you say, it broadens your experience whilst investigating out in the field. So is there something that you've seen recently that you haven't tried that you want to have a go at?
I don't know. So there's one thing that I don't know. You know, when you're doing investigation, there's just so much going on, and sometimes you forget is something I haven't really kind of gone into is like doing trigger objects in a room and like shutting the room, locking the room off with like a camera. You know, for example, draw around some coins on a bit of paper or a cross or maybe have like if there's reports of maybe children spirits in the place, have, a couple of cuddly toys and have a camera in that room, locking that room if you can lock the room, and then going back afterwards and seeing what happens. Sometimes that's just not possible. If you're in a place where, you can't lock the door or there is no door, it's hard because you can't. Obviously, if there's a camera pointing at something, that's great. But, to be able to have 100% concrete proof that nobody went in that room to move anything, you have to have a camera on all four walls, so it's quite difficult. But it's something I'd definitely like to do more of is trigger objects and leaving stuff alone in a room and leaving it for the whole investigation and coming back and seeing if something's moved, if we've caught it on camera. That's definitely something I'd like to do more often,
Sam?
And the thing is, obviously, if you're using CCTV and that, you have to obviously pick the right area, don't you, to have the camera and do that as well as the camera going to move on its own, before you even set it up without saying, obviously, it's paranormal.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's obviously it's an expensive hobby and a profession. Getting all that equipment in. I was at an event, recently where they had, infrared cameras outside. They had them in specific rooms, and in our base room, you could see all the cameras, so you could, you could actually have someone just almost at the base room watching those cameras all night long and making note of anything, that is seen. I mean, that's something that would be, really, really good to do. But again, it's quite, difficult to do that sometimes, and it's an expensive business and hobby. But I think some things, when you do investigations, I think sometimes you get so wrapped up in the building and forget about the land and outside. On this investigation the weekend, there was a camera outside because before, they caught a figure walking through the graveyard. So they wanted to put, because of that, they wanted to put another camera outside. So it was really interesting because obviously outside, you've got insects flying by and just kind of, dust and things like that. But it's the unusual you're looking for. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing, and obviously if you've got public watching your home base, I don't know why I'm calling it home base. But anyway, I suppose if public are watching it, because obviously seasoned investigators like ourselves would know if it was a bug going across the camera, whereas if it was public, some public may not actually think, and they'd be like, "Oh, look,"
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, there has been. There's people been recently sent me some footage saying, "Oh, their place is haunted, and look what I've caught." And they're so convinced, and you have to be careful because they've got this mindset that my place is haunted, and look what I've caught. But it's you have to be honest. You can't say, "Oh yeah, it could be paranormal." When you've looked at the footage, you freeze framed it and paused it and got back and forth, and then suddenly you can see the little glowing little white eyes. You can see the little feelers. You can see the little wings, and they're just going really of course, because if it's really quickly on a camera, you might think, "Oh my God, what is that?" Go flying around the room. But you have to, you have to be really careful, with bugs and dust like that and stuff, because there's dust all around. Even though we want to, really, really believe that it could be like some kind of initial manifestation of something, 9 times out of 10 it is a bug or a dust. So but it's hard because you feel like you let the people down. Like you feel like sad for them because they're almost excited that their place might be haunted, and you have to say no. It's just a lovely moth that's flying around your living room.
That's very true. Let him down gently.
Yeah.
I guess it's just because obviously it's quite easy to debunk into bugs and dust and things like that. Like obviously you have to put a lot of things into perspective. Like it could like lens flares. It could be something on the smudge on the lens and things like that. Especially obviously if you use a mobile phone. Mobile phones are horrible to use on paranormal investigations.
Yeah, it's good. They're good. They're good for like if you've forgotten your torch, or they're good for recording. For like EVPs, I think they're quite good. Most modern phones you can use, but yeah, it is difficult. For using mobile phones and stuff because they're so bright and they pick up every little particle. But also, talking about dust. I mean, what I look for is. If you're in a room and you've all come in, you're going to disturb the carpet, you're going to disturb everything. And I usually wait a while for it to be settled down. But what I look for I like to use orb, because I think there's a lot of discrepancy with the word orb. In the dictionary it means dust particle, but I just like to use light anomaly. So I'm looking at some kind of light anomaly that almost has its own illumination, that is moving completely and utterly separately to possibly the other dust, almost moving around and stopping or changing direction, or going purposely into somebody or near somebody, or some like a light anomaly appearing on cue. If you're asking out saying, if you are here, can you really try and show yourself? We want to see you, and you suddenly get this weird light anomaly that shoots across the room or does a loop the loop or something, and it's not a bug and you can't see any legs or wings. That for me is more credible, I think.
Yeah, and obviously it changes shape as well, because they say, don't they, if it is an actual spirit in a light anomaly, it can change shapes.
Yeah, I've seen a light anomaly at the Ancient Ram Inn in Gloucestershire. And it actually changed colour. It went from a usual kind of ones you see, like the reflecting ones, like a dust particle, but then it went kind of bluish, and then it grew into like red, and then it just kind of hovered there and then shot up straight to the ceiling. So for me, and the fact that we won't use any other light, there was nothing that could reflect blue or red in the room. We were in pitch black. So something like that. I mean, I personally couldn't explain that. The fact that it changed shape and kind of grew into this red ball, and then just like lightning shot up through the ceiling. For me, that was very, very interesting. Was it paranormal? I can't 100% say, because there might be other factors in the room. But that for me, that was really, really interesting evidence. So.
Mm-hmm. Liz says in the chat room she's seen a light anomaly herself with her own eyes in the bishop's room.
Oh, right. So, what, in the dark? Just in the dark. Okay. Yeah. See, that would be really impressive if you're actually in a darkened room with no light source, then and you see a light anomaly with your own eyes. Well, then you have to question what is making that anomaly reflecting. Is it its own light? I mean, that's impressive. I mean, I've seen kind of, sometimes you see kind of pinpricks of light in a room, and that's interesting as well. And that again there's no light in the room; it's pitch black, and it's almost first time you see it in the corner of your eye, and you kind of then look towards you've seen it, and you say, oh, was that you? Were you trying to show yourself? You trying to let us know you're with us? And you see those pinpricks of light again, Again, to me, that's really interesting. If you're 100% sure there's no other light source coming in that room, then you have to ask yourself what is making that anomaly light up. So yeah, that's very interesting.
To play devil's advocate
Oh.
on this one,
Yeah.
it could be a physiological thing. Your eyes are in the pitch black, and you know it's a
Yes.
well-known phenomena that people see mists. You know, when their eyes are adjusting to the light, we know that the eye is not reliable in the dark whatsoever. I'm going to I'm going to be slaughtered in the chat room, I'm sure.
No, it's true. It's true. And you know, when I'm in somewhere where the lights, when we go right, let's go lights out. There is that kind of period where your eyes are adjusting. You know, you don't get it now very much on modern TVs because the channels don't go to sleep. You know, when I was younger, when the channels used to stop broadcasting, you know the film Poltergeist, when it goes to the white noise.
Yeah.
So when the lights go out and I'm in locations black, that's what kind of I see in a kind of a duller way. But I see this kind of all this white noise kind of mixture in my eyes because my eyes obviously trying to find light and stuff that the eyes can reflect. You know, see something a bit of furniture. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you with that. It's the eyes are slightly unreliable, yeah, because the eye is always searching for an object, always searching something to focus on. It's like, you know, when you use a video camera at night, you know, and it goes out of focus, it can take something like you have to try and zoom in into an object or something to refocus, and I guess that's what our eyes are doing all the time in the dark. So whether are we seeing pinpricks of light? Possibly not, because it's just our eyes trying to desperately focus on something in that room. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but yeah, we're probably going to get all these people saying, "No, don't take that away from me."
I'm so sorry, everybody.
No,
For you believers out there.
We have Liz agreeing. She says, "I totally agree. If it's pitch black, but if there's no sunlight coming in, then pinpricks are interesting."
Yes, definitely. Yeah, but it's always good to be try and be rational, though. I think, yeah. Otherwise we'll be on all these dark rooms and we'll be seeing like all this lights going everywhere all the time. You know.
Oh my God, the spirits are very active tonight.
There's like 20 of them in this room. I can't believe it.
If only that was right. Okay.
I know.
Sorry, Sam, carry on.
Richard also says, I get political vision lights. When I discussed it with the optician, it is a form of a migraine.
Oh, migraine. Oh, that's something. Yeah, I guess if there's...
Well, yeah, I mean, migraines can cause flashing lights and stuff like that, aren't they? Because of the neurons firing, the way they're firing in the brain. But you also get other symptoms with a migraine. And I can't... Yes, I take that point, but I would argue that in regards to you'd have other symptoms, you'd be like, you'd be ill, wouldn't you? People with migraines.
I think I've experienced a migraine maybe once in my life, and I didn't realise how rare they are. But you get that nausea with them as well. And I certainly wouldn't be going on a ghost hunt having a migraine.
No, but it's a fair point. You know, it is a fair point. You know, you don't know. It could be the light, the darkness triggering a similar mind thing. There's a tech term there for you, everybody. Mind thing.
Mind thing.
But we do know that the eye will produce that kind of phenomena without a migraine in the dark. You know.
Yeah.
Interesting point, though.
Yeah, very interesting point. Yeah, if there's something going on with you physically at that time that might affect your vision or your sense of smell or your hearing, then obviously you might hear. I mean, like for example, if someone has tinnitus, in their ear, even if it's minor, they might be hearing sounds that we might not hear. Obviously, we won't hear. But if they're on an investigation, I think they might have a really difficult, way of saying, am I hearing sounds? Is that paranormal? Or is it just my tinnitus? Or things like that, or people having inner ear problems, and they're hearing sounds of voices. Is it something supernatural, or is it something to do with the symptoms of the condition they have?
Yeah, I mean, there is such a thing called musical ear syndrome as well, where your ear is searching for sound, so it will make you believe that you are hearing something that isn't there, and it normally comes from a very low tone that you don't even recognise, and that can be like if you're lying in the bed at night and there's a car 2 or 3 streets down with a very low, like type, the engine just running, your ear it's possible for your ear to pick that up and actually translate that into sound, which isn't actually there. Like, it's very common if there's a fan running or an aircon unit running or even a tumble dryer in your kitchen going or something like that, your ear is searching for sound. And I've actually had this. It's interesting you said when you was in hospital, because I've had similar, and I actually had that, and I was telling the nurse to either turn the radio up or turn it off because it was right on the edge of my hearing and it was driving me crazy. And she said, there's no radio on. There's nothing. And I could hear music. And I was going, but I can hear... And I was really argumentative about this point. I was ill. I would just like to point that out. Yeah. Very ill. And but I was swear blind. It was music playing. I could hear it playing. And that's called musical ear syndrome. And that's a well-known physiological or psychological condition. So it is... These are all things that you should be aware of when you're out and about investigating, or the same as not audio pareidolia, pareidolia itself. Your mind is always searching for patterns, faces in things when there isn't, which causes a lot of problems in regards to photography and stuff like that. But you should be aware of these things so you can help you rationalise some of the activity, some of the and I'm going to air quote, evidence that's collected on investigations. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting far too serious. Sam.
Just a few comments in the chat room before we move on about the tinnitus thing. Liz says most mediums suffer with it, but I've learnt from me it's a sign from spirit they want to talk. And also running water can sound like a conversation too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is because your ear is always searching for sound.
I mean, with my hearing, I'm very lucky. I used to work on the railway, so every 6 months we had to have hearing and sight tests. I'm very lucky with my sight, but I'm very lucky with my hearing because every time I had the hearing test, I heard every single tone. So all the way up to that high frequency and all the way down to the low tones. So that for me, that's really good on doing a paranormal investigation. Because there is the theory that spirits communicate on different hertz at different levels. And I do get a lot of hearing voices or someone speaking to me. And again, like you were saying about, hearing sounds and thinking, are they real sounds or is it just something in my head? Because I've been on investigations. I'm like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And everyone's going, no. I said, no, I'm hearing this. I was somewhere, I can't remember now, and we were doing some automatic handwriting in the basement, and somebody said something like kind of funny, and we all laughed. And at the same time, I heard this horrible, guttural, mocking laughter, like ha, 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 like that, over everyone's laughter. And I said, "Oh my God, who laughed like that?" And nobody answered me. And I said, "But who laughed?" And they were saying, "No, we were all laughing." No, I said, there was another laugh, like a mocking laugh over us. Anyway, so this was being recorded on a digital recorder. So my friend who was doing the recording sent me the recording about 3 days later, and he said, "You need to listen to this and put your earphones on and put it really loud." So I listened to it, and I jumped out of my seat because you could hear the laugh, this guttural laugh, and nobody heard it apart from me. So I don't know. I just think sometimes, some of us tune into different frequencies than others. But I do get the other argument: if you are possibly suffering from a condition, it may be hard to differentiate. What is a natural sound, what is something you might be hearing in your ear, like you're saying, your sight is, your eyes are looking for things, your hearing is listening out all the time. So it is tricky, but something like that just validated the fact that I knew. I was so adamant on that investigation that I heard this laugh, and I'm really pleased that somebody recorded it, because otherwise, to this day, I'll still be saying somebody laughed, nobody heard me. So yeah.
Well, I would just like to say I have had a private message just sent to me correcting me on the migraine factor.
Oh.
I know, right? And I'm going to read it. It says, not necessarily, Kerry. Not all migraines result in headaches and nausea. Peripheral vision lights, particularly at night before sleep, is a form of migraine. Well, I didn't know that.
Oh. Well, I didn't know that either. Oh, well, we've been corrected.
Educated. We've been educated. Guess what I will be researching a little bit more into?
Should we go down the
migraine rabbit hole to see how accurate that statement is? But I stand corrected as per this moment.
Yeah, we got told, I think.
Not necessarily. I will be doing my research on that. I know the person who said it to me, so it's fine. I'm not funny about it at all.
Oh, that's all right.
But it's interesting to know, though, isn't it? These things are factors. Yeah. And who knows? I don't know. I don't know enough about migraines to really be an authority on the subject. Anyway, carry on. Sorry. I just thought that was funny.
So we shall obviously continue on a little bit now, Greg. So what type of locations do you investigate?
Oh, all sorts. I'd like trying to get places where maybe there's reported incidences, inverted commas, I should say, of hauntings or strange occurrences, but maybe they haven't been investigated before. So I really try and find locations that maybe there hasn't been a serious investigation of. I like doing that because there are places out there that are seriously overdone. And I think some locations need to be left alone for a while. But I just do a lot of research. As I say, I try and find unique locations, whether it is, castle or tunnels or, at the moment I'm doing, I've visited a couple of colleges that hustling, bustling during the day with loads of students. And yet the security and the cleaners report strange occurrences happening every night, doors closing on their own, footsteps, voices. And one of these colleges has never been investigated before. So I'm like, why not? And I'm like, that's me, I'm in there. So, So, I mean, there's a lot of work to do beforehand, a lot of the research, lots of phone calls, and I just, there are places that are well known, and some of them are, I say, active, all the time. But I just like finding new, unusual places that no one's investigated before, or maybe people don't think there might be anything there to investigate. And I always try and do a recce there beforehand, at these places, because yes, you do get eyewitness statements and hearsay and things, but I do like to go to these places and have a couple of hours with myself and my partner just to bring some equipment and do a bit of EVP. I've been to places before where there has been reported activity, but when I've done our recce there, we've got nothing. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen in these particular places. It just means we might have not been there at the right time in the right place, because not all places are active all the time. So, but my definite goal is to go to unusual places that have never been investigated before. Definitely, yeah.
Do you find some owners and that of apparently haunted locations don't like you to know it's haunted though?
What as in what they don't want you to go in, and because they might think you can stir it up or whatever.
Yeah.
I've had a few interesting phone calls where I didn't really say 3 words, and it was no thanks. What are you going to be doing here? What kind of ritualistic kind of ceremonies are you going to be doing? And do you draw like upside down pentagrams, and will you be like I'm like, what horror movie did you watch last night? And I'm like, no, it's not. Just seeing what's there. Really, we're very respectful, but there's just people who are so adamant and so I don't know what the word is. Maybe denial is the right word, or afraid or worried that we're going to come in there and literally wake the dead and then leave and then have them to have to deal with it after we've gone. So there are people like that in UK that you just kind of go, okay, fine, that's fine, and that's it. But then you have the other extreme where people are like, oh my God, yeah, come in, yeah, we're really interested. We want to know. You would tell us what's going on. Tell us who's here. So there doesn't seem to be middle ground in this business. It's either a definite adamant no or completely yes, come in and please wake the dead for us and find out who's there and who's haunting.
Yeah, I think you do probably find though that some are in denial because probably they think, well, if I'm going to get someone in to investigate, then I've got to believe in this proof. Then, if they do capture anything, that okay, we're actually working a haunted location or own a haunted location.
Yeah, there's one place that I did back in January it's very unusual. It's called Non-Such Mansion in Surrey. And it's big connections with Henry VIII. But one of the assistant managers there, she's so funny. She basically took me around. I did quite a few visits there to kind of because it's a massive location and hasn't been investigated for about 20 years. So there's lots of kind of planning to do. And she said, "Look, I'm not going to the cellars are vast." And she said, "There's the door, there's the light switch, but I'm not coming down with you. I'm not coming up to the attic with you. I don't want to know what happens, what you find. No thanks." And then I speak to other members of staff who are very kind of open and honest about, oh, they've seen this or heard this, or actually, no, we're really interested to see what you get and whether it corroborates other eyewitness, testimonies of what staff have seen. So, you do get people who are really interested in what we get, and again, whether it corroborates with any history of the place. But then you get some people who just don't. Maybe in their heart of hearts, they know that something's going on, but they kind of want to ignore it. Because and again, I think this is something to do with Hollywood and films. I think people watch these films and think, they're going to have something attached to them, or something's going to, go home with them and be with them, and they can't get rid of, and I think they kind of get a bit scared about that, so they just don't want to. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to know. So, but you kind of go along with that. You respect their views and their wishes, and you just say, yeah, we had a great night, and that's it. So,
yeah, I think it is good, obviously, though, when you have people who work there, because I think, obviously, if they speak to you and they want to speak to you, and then you say, oh, yeah, we have caught this, they don't sound crazy then, because obviously because some things I say, I'm like, am I crazy? Am I not crazy?
Yeah, I mean, there's a college that I'm hoping to. Well, I think it's pretty much 100%, signed, sealed, and delivered. But in November, and again, one of the security guards is he tells the other members of the staff and the other security guards who are just don't believe him. He's like on shift, and when we were there a few weeks ago, it was just the 3 of us. He was, he gave us a walkie-talkie. We knew where he was. He didn't move at all. And a door slammed shut. Down a corridor, and I radioed him, and he said, "I know what you're going to say." And I said, "What?" He said, "A door slammed." I said, "Yeah," and I said, "How do you know that?" He said, "Because I heard it from here." But he kind of he knows there's something weird going on, but he just doesn't talk to any of the other security guards or cleaners because they just think he's crazy. Even though the other people might have heard it, they just have this thing and they don't want to discuss it. But I said to him, look, I heard what you heard, and we've heard definitely well, I say 100%, but we heard voices in the basement of the college, and there was some interaction with equipment, and I warranted that for further investigation. So he's really interested because he kind of wants to go, ha ha ha, I told you so to all the other staff, so he knows he's not crazy. So he really wants to, and he's actually asked me. He said, "Can he be part of the investigation?" So that's really good because he wants to actually try and find out what is or who's haunting the college. So yeah,
that's good then, because obviously I think some want to because then they can be like, "Hi, Fred, hi," so then they can actually talk to him, can't they?
Yeah, there are some places where their spirits are given names, which I think is quite funny, and it may not be their real name, but I can imagine the security guard going, "Well, you know who's here? Yeah, it's Sam. Yeah, Sam. Hi, Sam. How you doing tonight? Yeah, you good? Yeah, I'm just locking up, and you can do your slamming doors and you're running your footsteps and things. But yeah, that's fine. I don't know whether people find it kind of less, what's the word? Less scary or something if they put a name to it." If they kind of go, oh, like you say, oh, hi, Fred, hi, Charlie, hi, Emma, it's almost like they're well, I want to say it's almost like they're talking to the living, but, that's what, spirits are mainly, are just people who are not alive anymore. So maybe they feel comfort in giving it a name.
And also, like, if you give it a name, they don't think that they're talking into just thin air.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Talking in thin air and just getting no answer back.
So, obviously you've investigated somewhere recently as well. A few people, I don't know how recently did it, but I know Liz and Laurie have commented in the chat room about it earlier on. Tannis Hatch in Surrey Hills.
Yeah, Tannis Hatch. Do you know what? Wow. So this place, I knew someone who had investigated it before a couple of years ago, and I was very intrigued with it. Again, it's one of these very unusual places that a lot of people have never heard of, and it's this really small cottage that's dates back to the early 1700s, and it's now a YHA, Youth Hostel Association, but it's on National Trust property, and it's not far from a National Trust property house. And so I just thought, well, why not? Again, there's a very, very few stories about possible sightings and in the woods because it's surrounded by a lot of woods, and certain incidences of people disappearing and things like that. And then there's old pictures of it just being found by a couple after the Second World War, and it's pretty much in a derelict state, but they took it on and restored it to what it is today. So we didn't know what to expect really, so we went there last November. People we stayed over because they've got the bunk beds, and we provided some breakfast and stuff in the morning, and we had the fire going, which was really nice. But what's really good down there is there's no light pollution whatsoever, so there's no cars or anything like that, and there's no mobile phone signal, so you can't use your phone. There's no Wi-Fi signal, which is obviously great for equipment because we all know that mobile phones can interact with equipment and things like that. I didn't know what to expect at all, really. So we just started, as I said before, we tried to find different ways of trying to communicate. We were there for 2 nights. The Friday night was quite quiet because it was the group we had were all newbies to the craft, as I said. They were very enthusiastic, but they were quite shy, and they didn't want to kind of speak very much, and they didn't want to go and walking in the woods at all. there were a few things, on the Friday night. There was, we had a few cat balls that went off, and the REM pod flickered a little bit. But then the Saturday night, Laurie and some other few people came, and Matthew. Shout out to Matthew Harris if he's watching, listening. And it was a completely different dynamic. Sometimes you do an investigation and the group dynamic is just amazing. There's a lot of energy. You really get on. There's a lot of trust there. And it was just incredible. I mean, we were sitting in a room for 10 minutes, nothing happened. And I said, why don't we just go downstairs? We'll go downstairs and leave this room. And as we started to leave, the REM pod went off. It kind of bleeped a couple of times. I was like, oh, okay. So maybe something here. And the cat ball flashed, and then we had footsteps, and it's such a small cottage, and what we were trying to do is keep everyone together, because there was like 13 of us, and it's because it's quite a small cottage. We didn't want people spread out because there'd be quite a lot of noise pollution. But I just had great evidence. And what I really found impressive is we had two mediums on both nights. So one medium on the Friday night, one medium on the Saturday night, and they both came up with almost exactly the same information. And a lot of this information about this cottage is very hard to find in Google. And there's also history that connects the cottage to the National Trust property, again, which is very, very hard to find unless you actually speak to someone in the National Trust property. And we went out in the woods about half a mile away from the cottage. Most people have left their phones at home. Again, there's no phone signal. I don't actually check phone signals, but we were getting responses on the K2 going up to red to certain questions. And again, the mediums picked up on the same story both nights, and they don't even know each other. They've never met. And I just found it just all this stuff going on, just really like goose pimply stuff, amazing. And we went back in March and just had another 2 nights of crazy stuff. I mean, I've got, and I must actually upload it. I keep forgetting. I've actually got footage of a door opening by itself. And we tried to recreate it because again, trying to be rational, trying to think, did somebody walk past the door, maybe close to a few seconds before or after. And when you look over the footage, there is one person that walks past the door. They go downstairs and then nothing. And then the door just closed shut on us in the room. And we tried to reenact that. So we opened the door back up. There was about 4 people who walked past the door, down the stairs, up the stairs, past the door, and the door didn't move. So we had some, great stuff there. One of the guests got scratched. I shouldn't laugh, but she was like, "Oh yeah, this is what we're here for." And I'm like, I'm not sure you should be here to be scratched, but she, and it was her first time on I think her first or second time on an investigation. So she was a bit like, a bit shocked, but she was really excited as well that she got scratched on the face. But again, we had a different medium on the Saturday night. Liz, I think, may be listening. She was there on the Saturday night. Again, she came up with almost exactly the same information and spirits that were picked up 6 months previously. And I found that really impressive. And all 3 mediums picked up on the fact that there was someone who had been killed and dumped. They all 3 of them dumped in water, a body of water, and then Liz said on the Saturday previously in March, said I think she was thrown down a well. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm spine tingling because there's a well on the property, but it's covered up, and you wouldn't even know that it's there unless you knew the owner of the property, that the caretaker, you wouldn't have known. So something like that, just it was such a great investigation. It was more than I could have ever possibly imagined, because when you look at it, it's a small cottage in the woods. You just don't. And again, the history, it's very sparse, the history. There's bits and bobs, so we weren't sure what we were going to get. But for psychic mediums to pick up on almost similar stories, never met each other, and intelligent spirits. I mean, the mediums are picking up on spirits from way back in the 1500s to the 60s and 70s of like the Summer of Love and things like that. And it was just, it was so good to get that kind of activity, and you know, when you go to locations, it's all very old and, you know, 13th century, 16th century, but you know, to possibly be interacting with people who stayed at the cottage, you know, in the 60s and 70s, you know, was just amazing. And it's I'll be hopefully going back there the end of this year, because it's one of these places that is so unusual, and it's quite special now. And a lot of guests have returned before, you know, and have just really liked it. So yeah, that's one for the books, definitely. That's one for anybody who's not been there. They need to do Tanner's Thatch Cottage, because it's very special. Plus, you get to sleep there as well, which is good.
I want to go now.
It's good, as I said, because there's only like 13 of us, so it's nice, and we get there's not that kind of, you know, when you're doing an event where you're in a place as large, you know, you've got a lot to ground to cover. You know, it's quite formatted and quite time restricted. But when you're staying in this cottage, because you're there the whole night and you've got the fire going, you can relax and talk to each other and speak about each other's experience. So it's much more relaxed, and I think that really helped, really, you know, especially with the dynamic of everybody.
Mm-hmm. So we're moving on for the last 4 minutes now.
Okay.
We had a few questions in the chat room earlier, obviously from Liz and Laurie. So I think it was Laurie, or Liz asked, what is your best location to investigate?
Oh God, we've only got 4 minutes. You know, I used to have the best, and I had the top 3 and top 5. Okay. Preston Manor in Brighton, near Brighton, it's got to be up there. Ancient Ram Inn, been there 8 times. Those 2. And sorry, it's not my best. So top 3, and Manor Farm near Southampton. They're probably my top 3 for, you know, guaranteed pretty much activity every time I've been. So yeah.
Another one. This one is obviously from Laurie.
Hey,
You'll
Laurie.
just know. If you could pick one place in the States to investigate, where would it be?
Oh my God. Where's that Axe House? That Viscula
Made house.
Axe Murder House.
I can't think
that.
where it is.
Lizzie Borden's house, and one of those sanitariums.
Waverley.
Yeah, Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
So yeah, not one, but there's like 3 there. But yeah, so when I go, one day when I go to the States, then I'll have to try and get one of those places, definitely.
Anywhere else?
Do you know? I'd love to actually investigate the house in Amityville. Just to see what if anything would happen. You know, maybe it's laying dormant for now, but yeah. I've always been a bit obsessed with Amityville, so because I've been there on the street, I've been outside. That was a bit of a childhood thing to go there. So so I'd do that. I'd do that for a night, just to kind of put my mind at rest, to see if there was anything there.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have anything coming up with Fright Night Surrey?
Yeah, I've got in July we are at the Old Beneficiary School in Portsmouth, which is now a theatre. It's quite a small venue, but we've investigated there before a couple of times. That's on July 13th. That's a really good venue. I've also got in September, I've got Manor Farm, which quite a lot of people know about. Laurie is one of our favourites. Manor Farm is amazing. It's 2 cottages. We've got a deconsecrated church and barns. We've got 6 hours there. So that's September 28th. We're back into Beneficiary School in Portsmouth in October. And I was just speaking to you earlier about there's a couple of colleges, school colleges, that I'll be doing later on in the year. So, and also hopefully returning to Tanner's Thatch at some point, probably in November, when it's right, nice and cold and wet. No, because it's good, because it means we can light the fire and have the fire going on all night. So, but yeah, lots of events coming up, and as I said, I'm always out there researching for new places. So, And I've got a little one in October called the Priest House as well in Sussex, which is a nice, lovely little place actually. So, yes.
And if anybody is interested in any of these events, where can they find info about them, Greg?
Yeah, so you can go on Fright Nights Surrey website and my Facebook page, Fright Nights Surrey Facebook page. All the information about all my events are coming up, which is lovely. And big shout out to obviously Fright Nights head office, the main website. We do events all over the country. So like my page, follow my page, come on one of my events, book on one of my events, and hopefully some of you listeners I might see on a future event soon. Fingers crossed.
I'm sure you'll see Laurie and Liz.
I know I will.
Before all of us say goodbye, guys, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, as always, for sending in questions and obviously talking in the chat room. If you miss any of our shows, you can obviously find us on Spreaker, which you are listening to us live right now. You can just click on the Parasearch Radio name and you can have a list of all the shows which have obviously gone live on the show. You can find us on YouTube at Parasearch Radio, Facebook and Twitter, Parasearch Radio. It's a good night from Kerry.
And a good night from me, Greg.
Sorry, good night. I'm muted. I don't want signed off, I had.
Sorry, Kerry.
Thanks for listening, guys.
And it's a good night from me.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.